Thanksgiving coming up later this year, a day of Thanksgiving. And you know, all countries, pretty much all societies, have some form of Thanksgiving Day. It's, you know, after the summer, the fall's come, you've harvested your food, and that's what it's about at the end of that. We have, when the Pilgrims came here, and we tend to think of it as the United States Thanksgiving Day, but it's not uncommon, but it's done in different ways throughout the world, and sometimes different reasons. England, old England, centuries ago, they had Lammas Day. Lammas means loaf mass. They would all bring a loaf of bread to church, and you would have a special mass for those loaves of bread because they were made from the first harvest wheat. But not all of them are about strictly harvest. Grenada has Thanksgiving Day. It's to be thankful that the United States invaded the country and disposed the dictator that they had. So that's their Thanksgiving Day. Guyana has Homomo. Homomo celebrates the time they had this huge famine, and they made it through that famine. And so Homomo means we hoot at hunger. I'd like to see us have a We Hoot at Hunger Day. It seems like a good idea to me. You know? But I thought about this, and you know, one of the things I thought about is, here's our theme, Thanksgiving, and everybody's going to be talking about this theme. And I thought, well, I'm going to have to watch this because I don't want my talk to be just like everybody else's talk on Thanksgiving. And I thought, well, let's see. I'm going to be talking about cavemen and the intestines of great apes and Mobility International USA. I probably don't have to worry. My talks generally are not like other people's talks. I probably have to be concerned that my talk is going to make any sense. That doesn't always happen. So, Thanksgiving, and I thought, well, here it is, our day's coming up, Thanksgiving, but who are we thanking and what are we giving? So spiritually, we are celebrating Thanksgiving. We're giving something, but who are we giving it to? I mean, the concept generally is, in a spiritual Thanksgiving, you're giving something to this God who lives off in the sky somewhere. But we know that that's not the case. So what is thanks and who do we give it to? And I thought, well, to figure this out, like I always do, I try to go back to the beginning of this. So I thought, well, let's go back about 2 million years to the cavemen. And so here are these humanoids, very much like people, and they're living their lives. Somebody there had a brilliant idea. Somebody there was creative and made a tool out of stone. Somebody came up with this concept that you take a rock about the size of your hand and you chip at it until it's in the shape sort of a teardrop. And then if you chip at the two sides at a slanted pattern, those sides become sharp. And you have this amazing tool. I mean, this is kind of like inventing the iPhone today. He could do something nobody else could do. He could cut meat. He could scrape things. He could cut through hide. This amazing development of a new tool. And people at the time also had discovered and domesticated fire, and invented, of course. But some things were happening. People were organizing, probably, at least at some point in there, had rudimentary speech. So with fire, they had better tools because they had wooden spears and they could harden the points in the coal. They were very organized. They could coordinate their hunting. And so over this 1.5 million years, they were getting more meat. They were getting large animals because they had better ways of hunting. And with this new tool, they could cut it efficiently. And they had fire, and with fire, you could cook the meat. Now, why is all of that important? It's because our brains take 9 times the amount of energy that the other parts of our body take. And when you can be bringing in more meat, that has more calories in it than this grains and nuts and berries they were eating. And when you cook it, you're able to take those calories in much more efficiently. All of the great apes, the chimpanzees, the gorillas and stuff, their intestines weigh about 4 times more than their brains do. Because there's a lot of digestion that has to occur when they have this sort of lifestyle of just going around and eating things. So these people, over 1.5 million years, were getting more meat in. They were cooking it so it would digest more. Now, their brains started growing because now they were bringing in this extra calories so their brains, which take up a lot more energy, could grow. Right now, our brains outweigh our intestines. And this has to do with our efficiency. And so let's think about this. Over that 1.5 million years, their brains are growing up to 1/3 bigger than they were before. So evolution was occurring, their brains were growing, their brains are basically the size as ours. In that 1.5 million years, people spread all over 3 continents, all over Africa, into Europe, into Asia. But there was an amazing thing. They were still making just one stone tool exactly like they had always made it. Now, think about that. That's 70,000 generations of the children copying their parents, making these tools. These people now have brains the same size of ours. They've been going around doing this for 1.5 million years, and nobody thought to make any other tool. Why? What in the world is going on? A bigger brain is supposed to be smarter, it's supposed to be more creative, and yet, for 70,000 generations, nobody thought of creating something new. Now, about 100,000 years ago, something else happened. We started seeing the remains of fish bones and things that were hundreds of miles away from the shore. We started finding types of rocks that were hundreds of miles from where that type of rock was. We found seashells way away because something new had occurred. You see, most kinds of animals, and we'll talk about again the great apes, the chimpanzees, the gorillas, they share with their families, with their clan, if you will. If they have food, they'll share it with them. But if an animal from a different group comes in, if you have a new gorilla come over to this new group, a new chimpanzee, they will attack them. They'll growl at them, they'll threaten them, they'll drive them away. And that's generally the natural order. Except people did something new. For some reason, people started saying, well, you know what? I'm not just like my tribe, my clan. I'm like these people too. And I don't have to attack them. I can give them things, and they can give me things. And we see evidence of this sharing the first time ever. No other animals ever do that. And at that same time, we see new tools. We see new types of stone tools. We see stone spears. We see made out of bone. We see needles. We see hooks. We see spoons made from antlers. We see small scraping tools. Suddenly, an explosion of creativity and tools. Now, what's going on? The brain didn't change. They had the same brain size by now. They'd had it for hundreds and hundreds of thousands of years. But something that had never happened before, this explosion of creativity and tools. And I'll tell you what's going on with this. Creation is divine. That's one of the main attributes of divine spirit, is creation. And yet, man didn't have access to that divine principle because there's another primary principle we had to have first. And that's the principle of oneness. That's the principle of unity. And until you have that divine principle first, you do not have access to the other attributes of the divine. And when man started changing and saying, I am one with everyone, it's not just me and my group against everybody else, but I can see my oneness with these others and I can share with them, that man suddenly had access to the other attributes like creativity. An amazing change that happened within a very short period of time. After 1.5 million years, and nothing had changed. I just got back from Washington, D.C. I was there with a group called Mobility International USA. And there were people from 19 different organizations across the United States, along with 2 people each from 19 different countries. It was a wonderful experience. My roommate was from China. He was missing one leg below the knee. He had an artificial leg. And at night, when he took it off and going to bed, and then he wanted to get up, he had to get up and hop around. Another woman there only had one leg. I mean, the other was gone, must have been about at the hip. And she went around with 2 crutches and one leg. 2 people from 2 different countries in Africa were blind. There were at least 8 people in wheelchairs, several of them in electric wheelchairs because they didn't have any kind of upper body strength to run that. We were there 3 days, interacted with all of these people, talked with them many times. All of us gave various presentations. No time ever did I hear someone say, "Oh, poor me. I've got this horrible disability." I never heard anybody say, "Oh, I'm having all of these problems. Oh, I can't do this. I need more things. Oh, do this for me." Every conversation was about what are we going to do for other people. Every presentation, every conversation was about what are we going to do for other people. And these were some of the most creative people I've ever met. And so what I realized was, what is thanks? Thanks comes from an ancient word meaning thought. And its original concept was thought. And it came to be good thought. And so when we're talking about thankfulness, we're talking about a good thought. And what is that good thought? That good thought is our oneness with everyone. Our oneness with all people. And you know what? When we can move from that confinement, that enslavement of self-centeredness to that exalting freedom of oneness, then we have true thankfulness. Thank you.